London, as everyone knows, is a world capital city. There's an awful lot to do, and the Metropolitan Police have
wanaagsan waa la wada wadaagay noloshan intaasay ku dhisan tahay aniga waxba naqaan adigadan aan aqoon
15 years old and older, and I'm using that as an age because 15 has a specific meaning.
Community, they're, in my opinion, Somalian communities.
وأنا نقولها السياسة هالكن هذا نقولين وحبك قف سمعنا سهرنتاي إنه
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته خيارتنا داونا سايمال كسو الدنيا ذاك جوكتان ومركلة يا برنامج كأريمها بلشدة همين والبو سنين سلاسل يسوق ليسو سقالك UK كذا وتان تي في يونيفرسال حرمت سلحة مقالة لندن sida aad ku aragteen aaladaha daayirtu ay isticmaasho sida Facebook iyo meelaha la midka ayaanu ku qornay barnaamijkan caawa waxa uu ku saabsan yahay balse intiina aan ogeyn aan idin kaga warramo barnaamijka caawa waxa uu ku saabsan yahay waxa jira dhawaan buug soo baxay oo loogu magac daray inuu yahay in dalka Soomaaliya ay tahay dunida meesha ugu khatarsan ee caalamka dadka ku nool oo dhan ay ku nool yihiin si kala hadaan u raado raalli ahaada Soomaaliya inay tahay dunida meesha ugu khatarsan oo ugu daran xagga nabadgelyada adduunka daba qoraaga buugga ayaa caawa asagoo halkaan ila fadhiyo stuudiyaha aanu jecelnahay inaanu wax ka weydiino waxaa ku kalifay buugga inuu qoro magaca wuxuu ugu bixiyey iyo arintaasu dhibaatada iyo dhaawac ay gaarsiin karto dadka Soomaaliyeed dawladda Soomaaliyeed iyo dhammaan ummadda Soomaaliyeed meel kasta dunida ka joogto daba haddaan iskiin baro martideeda caawa ila fadhida James Ferguson waa qoraa weeyaan buug qora isla mar ahaantaana asagoo ah journalist madax bannaan oo u shaqeeya iskiisa u shaqeeyay laakiin TV fara badan iyo barnaamijyo fara badan ka qayb gala khibrad fara dheerna u leh dadka xaq jirka loo yaqaano reer galbeedku ay yaqaanaan waa si hadalka u dhigeen ee muslimiinta ee dagaalada ku jira 15 sano ayuu wuxuu ka waramayay oo khibradna u lahaa dalka Afghanistan uu joogay halkaas uu buug fara badan ku qoray buuggiisii u dambeeyay ayaa waxa uu ku soo qaatay sidaan hore been kugu sheegay Soomaaliya inay tahay meel khatar buuggan ayaa wuxuu taabanayaa ashkhas aad iyo aad dadka Soomaalidu ay u yaqaanaan siyaabo kala duwan u taabanaya qaarkood ay maaragtay aysan jeclaanayn inaan halkan ka sheegno annaguna aan doonayn inaan ka sheegno balse buuggu uu xor u yahay inay qaataan oo ay gataan oo dabadna ogaan waxa laga qoray waxa uu wax ka qoray dawladdii hore ee Sheekh Shariif Sheekh Ahmed waxa uu wax ka qoray dawladda Somaliland sidoo kale waxa uu wax ka qoray dawladda Puntland iyo ashkhas kale ayaguna aad iyo aad u fara badan daba buugga title-kiisa marka horeyso aad aragtid ayaa waxa ku qoran saad u jeedaanba inay Soomaaliya tahay dunida meesha ugu khatarsan inaan yaro qori haysto oo iskuul liganin oo waxba baranaynin oo halka taagan ayaa ku sawiran marka waxaan jeclahay asaga soo dhaweyno marka hore dabadna aanu ka wareysano buugga James Ferguson welcome to Universal TV.
Thank you for having me.
Can we start with the title of the book? How did you get to this title of the book, which is so damaging to Somali people, as we know?
I'm fully aware that it's a pretty controversial title. It's quite negative. I think the answer to that is that in a sense, it wasn't my title. It was put together by the publishers. It's a commercial title, and this is designed to make people pick it off a shelf. And I'm talking not about Somali readers. This is aimed at white readers going on holiday in the airport in the bookshop and trying to. They might go, oh, that looks interesting. The problem, of course, is that for a lot of white people, non-Somalis, they know absolutely nothing at all about Somalia. If they know anything, it's because they've seen Black Hawk Down, and it does have this reputation as being the world's most dangerous place. And I think there was a time in the past when it possibly merited that title. But obviously now it's rather out of date. Things are getting better for Somalia, and I hope actually that the book makes that clear. It's not a list of horrors and negativity from Somalia at all. It's things are getting better in Somalia. We've got an elected government, Al-Shabaab are on the back foot, and this is possibly the first opportunity now in 20 years for things to get better in the country, and that's obviously a very important part of the message. So in that sense, I rather regret it, because the title doesn't reflect what's in the book, and I hope that readers won't judge a book by the cover, as we say.
Excellent. I'll just put that quickly to the audience in Somali language. waxaan weydiiyey waxa ku kalifay buuggan magaca foosha xun wato dadkeena iyo dalkeenaba dhaawac u gaarsiinaya waxa ku kalifay waxa uu yiri buuggan looguma talagelin Soomaalida oo kaliya bal waxaan ugu talagalnay dadka cadaanka oo Soomaaliya waxba ka ogaan inay akhristaan si Soomaaliya wax uga ogaadaan waxaana ka xumahay buu yiri title-ka buuggan maxaa yeelay dadkii publish gareeyay ayaa title-kan u qoray James asagoo ra'yigiisu ma ahayn Soomaaliyana sidii hore ma aha waxaan hadda haysanaa buu yiri elected government dawlad la elect gareeyay ururka al-shabaabna waxa ay maaragtay qaybahoodii u dambeeyay ayaa wadanka laga saaraya marka Soomaaliya sidii hore ma aha buu yiri waana ka xumahay buug inuu magaca leeyahay laakiin waxaan ka codsanayaa buugga coverkiisa inaan ku judge gareyn ama si inaan oranin coverka xun gudaha waxa ku jiraan wax xun yihiin su'aasheeda labaad hadaan u gudbo James, how long have you been in Somalia?
I went there for the first time in 2011, and I did perhaps 3 or 4 separate trips, I think, maybe a total of 3 months over most of 2011. So I certainly can't pretend to be an expert. I'm previously a writer on Afghanistan, which I've been covering for 15 years. And so I went to Somalia really following the story, because in 2009 there were news reports that Al-Qaeda were flooding out of Pakistan and Afghanistan, going back to Yemen and Somalia. I went with it to see if it was true, in fact, as part of what I did.
Right, speaking about Taliban and Afghanistan, you talk about similarity between Taliban and Al-Shabaab. How did you reach that conclusion?
Well, there are similarities and there are great differences. In some ways, I would say that the Taliban are actually better organized than Al-Shabaab. It is possible to, and I've been working in Afghanistan for years, and it is possible to go and meet the Taliban, which I've done often, and to talk to their commanders. They understand the value of the media, whereas I found in Somalia most Al-Shabaab leaders, impossible to get to them, in fact, as an outsider, and they were very, it wasn't safe because they didn't understand the value of the media in the same way. I think if I'd gone to meet the wrong person, I'd be killed, in fact, with Al-Shabaab. It was a very different kind of organization. So they are similar in some ways, but different in others.
waxaan weydiiyey James inta uu ku maqnaa inta uu joogay dhulkii hooyo wuxuu yiri 3 bilood ayaan joogay Soomaaliya oo dhan mana ihinin expert ku ah dhulka Soomaaliya iyo dadka Soomaaliyeed ma ihi waxaan kala weydiiyey buugiisa markaan akhrinayay inuu soo qaatay shabaab iyo ay Taliban ay waxyaalo fara badan wadaagaan wuxuu yiri wax badan way wadaagaan waxyaalo fara kala duwan oo kala duwan yihiin oo aad iyo aad u kala fog James, if I ask you when you first get to Somalia, did Mogadishu live its reputation?
Well, in some ways it did, because 2011 Al-Shabaab was still very much in the city, and I was with AMISOM, went up to the front line, which at that time was cutting right the way across the centre of Mogadishu, and I've certainly never seen anything quite like that front line. The two sides were fighting, in some cases, 50 yards apart. It was an active front line. It required helmets and flak jackets, and it was dangerous. There was bullets flying across. It reminds me of Stalingrad, in fact. This is what it's really like. And to me, it was like something out of the history books. So in that sense, it was kind of dangerous. Yes, it was.
What was the most dangerous thing that you have seen in Somalia while you were in Mogadishu in particular? What would you say?
It's the threat of the random bullet or the random dropping mortar shell, which happens a lot. I mean, you saw it in the hospitals. I mean, it's okay for me. I was just there for 5 minutes. I mean, it's quite different if you're living there. The longer you're in a place like that, the greater the chance of being unlucky and getting hit. But when you go to the hospitals, you see all these civilians who were nowhere near the fighting zone. I interviewed several people who'd just been hit by stuff falling out of the sky, and that seems to me to be a very, very dangerous and difficult place to live. And I've never. It happens in other places, but for the amount of time that the ordinary Somalis have had to put up with that is really something very special, and it has affected the people's minds. I mean, you could see it. You could talk to the doctors and nurses there. They said that there's almost a collective sickness among the people because they've been living with this threat of being killed for so long that it's affected them in a strange way, and I think it's something very unusual in the world.
You visited the town of historic town of Taleh.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Taleh was a terrific place. I was privileged to go there because it had been forgotten about by people for a very long time. It felt extremely cut off. And the people there told me that they hadn't seen a European since 1997. So it was a remarkable thing to be able to do. It's a tremendous ruin. It was like, I don't know, it was they had their parliament, the kind of the town parliament, which was a beautiful acacia tree with a wall around it. And 3 months later, it became Khartoum. I mean, it declared independence, and that was their parliament. It's obviously a very difficult place because it's right between Somaliland and Puntland. It's a contested territory, made more complicated by the possibility that there is oil there. So you've got all these money interests swirling around, and it's an extraordinary place. What can I say about it? It's as a ruin, it is historically fascinating. The locals there want it to be a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and I would say that it deserves it. It's a ruin fine enough to be that. And I understand completely the emotional significance of the place and the site and so on. So I think it deserves to be better known, I would say, just from a touristic point of view.
Okay, I'll put that quickly. And waxyaalahan weydiiyey waxaa ka mid ahaa inuu tegey magaalada taariikhiga ee Taleex una kula kulmay dad Soomaaliyeed oo halkaa jooga una yiri waa magaalo taariikhi dadka halkaa ku noolna cisiga iyo sharafta saaxiibkana waxay jecel yihiin in ay noqoto meel taariikhi ah oo dadku ay soo booqdaan oo loo soo daawasho tago oo dunidu ay maaragtay tixgeliso xaq bayna u leeyihiin waxyaalaha dhibaatada u keenay dadka halkaa degan waxay ku dhex yaalaan buu yiri laba maamul oo kala duwan ama laba dawlad maamuleed oo kala duwan ayuu kala dhex yaalaan buu yiri kuwaas oo keeni kara buu yiri dhibaato waxaan intaas uga daran buu yiri in meeshaas oo ay leedahay natural resources ama oil ay leedahay sababta awgeedna in la isku dagaalo keeni karta.
Can I say one more thing about it? The interesting thing about Talley from a British point of view, of course, is that this is the RAF, the Royal Air Force, bombed Talley in 1920 in their campaign against the Mad Mullah, as he was then called. And while I was there, a very old gentleman with a deeply hennaed beard and a beautiful twisted stick suddenly got up and said, "Now, which one of you is the British journalist?" And I went, "Oh, that's me." And said, "Now, we wrote to your ambassador in 1982 demanding compensation for the ruin you've made of this with your bombs. We never received a reply. When are you going to compensate the ruins, the damage that you've done to Talley?" And so anyway, I said I'd pass this message back.
waxa kale uu yiri oo muhiim ah iyadana wuxuu yiri markii aan Taleex tagay waxaan la kulmay buu yiri oday dhaqameedka qaar kamid ah oo nin odaya oo daa uu ku jiray oo garkiisu cas yahay maxin uu leeyahay oo bakoorad wata ama hangool wixii la oran jiray wuxuu nagu yiri 1920kii markii Sayid Maxamed Cabdulla Xasan uu la dagaalamayay askartiisa iyo asagoo ay la dagaalamayeen daraawiishtii ciidanka Ingiriiska ayaad diyaarad nala dhacdeen buu yiri bam nala dhacdeen marka goorma ayaad hagaajinaysaan dhulka aad burburiseen waxaad ka dareemaysaa odaygaas inuu rabo inuu xaqiisii dhacsado dadkiisa iyo dalkiisa dib loogu dhiso. Do you think he had a point though?
Well,
you break it, make it. Wouldn't you say?
Maybe, yes, maybe. I mean, I agree. I mean, it's obviously a bone of contention for the people that live there, and the place is ruined. I very much. I mean, they were saying there, well, are you going to repair this fort? I think it may be a bit too late for that. It's 100 years old, and actually restoring the fort might be a bit difficult. But I think that there must be a compromise, and it deserves, as I say, better recognition. And UNESCO heritage site status could certainly help it, because it would be very tragic if it were allowed to collapse even more than it is already.
You said Mad Mullah. We call him Sayyid Muhammad Abdullah Hassan.
The English word, the English phrase.
But the English saw him as a mad guy. But to us.
No, I know. No, not me. I'm just that's history.
I understand you, sir. Marka waxay yiraahdeen buu yiri odaygii garka casaa wuxuu yiri 82 ayaanu ambassadorka Ingiriiska u qornay warqad aanu leenahay waanadan xaqeena noo soo celisaan dhulkeena dib loogu dhisaan ilaa haddana waradin kama hayo. James oo asagu journalistana wuxuu ku yiri waa keen ninka Britishka fariinta qaaday fariintan wuxuu u gudbiyay David Cameron hameenkii buuggan la soo saarayay meeshii lagu soo saarayay joogna anagoo kooxa suddenly fariintaas uu gudbiyay James. I'm grateful that you passed the message because I was there the night you launched the book. That's what I was just saying. You visit also Garowe. What was it like?
Garowe seems to be a place that not many people visit. It seems to be, for that reason, I think it's quite often misunderstood. And I found Garowe to be a strange place. It's very remote, but it's functioning, and the Farole government there is doing its best, I would say. I think under quite difficult circumstances. It does feel very... the government there is still trying to extend its control over the territory of Puntland, and it doesn't control everything as well as it would like to. It lacks capacity. But I think that the government's heart is in the right place, actually, and in particular in their efforts against piracy, the establishment of the Puntland Marine Force. Very clearly, the president who I interviewed is absolutely serious about trying to get a grip on it, and he's doing his best. But it's very difficult because, for instance, he told me there are something like an estimated 5,000 pirates operating off the coast of Puntland.
He told you that in person?
That was the figure that's going around, but he said, but also, what are we supposed to do with them? We only have 350 prison places in the whole of Puntland, and the coast of Puntland is 1,600 kilometres, is it? It's very, very long. So trying to police all of that is hard, and especially when you're not really getting the support from the international community on the ground as much as there is some, of course, but it's not enough. I mean, it's going to be a long process to build up the capacity, to train the judges, to build the prisons, to deal with that. So I think he gets a bad press, actually, on the whole.
waxaan weydiiyey visitkii uu ku tegay magaalada Garowe ismaamulka Puntland magaala madaxdeeda waxa uu yiri waxaan la kulmay buu yiri madaxweyne Farole iyo maxay dadkii ka dhawaa waxa ayna ku dadaalayaan buu yiri inay maaragtay nabadii iyo wanaagga iyo kala dambeynta ay soo celiyaan madaxweynahana qalbigiisu meel fiican buu ku aadan yahay macnaheedu ay tahay inuu dadka uu rabo wax wanaagsan waa sidoo hadalka u dhigay James of Soomaali ma ku turjumaya waxa uu kaloo sheegay in ay doonayaan maaragtay dawladda Puntland inay maaragtay gaarsiiyaan service-kooda iyo ciidamadooda meelaha kale oo aysan gaarsaneyn laakiin se awoodii aysan jirin meel walba ay ku gaari lahaayeen ilaa 500 oo dadka maxay tahay burcadbadeedana ay joogaan waa sidoo hadalka u dhigay asagu markuu interview gareynayay madaxweyne Farole waxa kale oo sheegay inay muhiim tahay maaragtay inuu madaxweynuhu dadaal fara badan ugu jiro sidoo arintaas maaragtay uga qayb gali lahaa loo soo afjari lahaa dadaal fara badan ay u galeen inay dabar jaraan ama dhaawac weyn gaarsiiyaan dadka ayagu maaragtay markaas baarasiga ka shaqeeya ama sabracadada waxagaag James, and if we go back to Mogadishu, talk about in your book numerous times Al-Shabaab. You talk about Mukhtar Robo, you talk about Godani, there's even pictures of them in the book. And the stoning to death of a 47-year-old man.
Famous shots,
before we get to the stoning, the gentleman being stoned to death, have you managed to speak to any member of the Al-Shabaab?
Al-Shabaab?
Yeah.
Not senior leaders, very difficult indeed. I didn't manage it. I tried extremely hard, but it's they don't have they don't have any kind of media operation.
Indeed.
They don't have any emails, they don't have any phones you can call. When you ask local journalists saying, how do I get to their spokesman, they go, well, there is a phone number, but it changes every kind of 5 minutes. And I spent a lot of time trying to get to them. It was a nightmare. And in the end, I gave up because I was going to spend my whole life trying to do that. What I did manage to do is to speak to the foot soldiers, and that was possible. There was a deserters camp, which had been set up by Amisom very near the airport. And you could go and speak to people there who had been recently fighting for Al-Shabaab, and they were mostly juniors, some mid-level commanders. And that was pretty interesting, because you then found out why people had chosen to fight, and you know, what had motivated them to do that. And it was very shocking. I went there expecting at least some of them to say, well, it's because of Allah, it's because of Islam, I'm fighting for ideology. And it didn't seem to be the case at all. They were fighting because they were hungry, because they were desperate, because they had nowhere else to go. They were mostly good kids, and that was the strange thing. They were indistinguishable from other young Somalis. They were all very young, and that was shocking too.
Some of them were 15.
Some of them was one of them was 9. You know, and he'd been used to carry ammunition up to the front, and he'd been messed up. He was not, and it was an appalling thing to see a 9-year-old kid who'd just spent his life far on the front line. But the 15-year-olds, the 20-year-olds, some of them were pretty clever. They were good kids. One of them was an ex-pirate. He was an ex-pirate, ex-Al-Shabaab. He was about 23. And I said, what were you thinking? Why did you, how did your life turn into this? And he said, well, my family are all dead, and when a man has nothing, you will do anything to kind of get some money. It was just looking for the main chance. I met at another occasion some prisoners, also 15, 16 years old, and they'd been in school 2 weeks before. Al-Shabaab had come to them looking to recruit people and said, who's with us? And no one put their hands up. And then the recruiter said, we will make sure you get a piece of fruit every day if you join us. And these 3 boys went, oh, okay, and they joined up. They joined Al-Shabaab for a piece of fruit. It was nothing to do with Al-Qaeda ideology. And that seemed to me to be something we need to kind of get a hold of in the West, because we all think here that it's about Al-Qaeda and taking over the world and caliphate and all of that. That wasn't my experience at all, at least among the foot soldiers.
Those Al-Shabaab fighters in the camp near the airport, captured obviously and kept it in captivity. Have they been mistreated, as far as you know, by the Amazon?
No, they didn't look mistreated to me at all. And they weren't really being kept in captivity, I have to say. The point of it was to rehabilitate them into society, they had sheds up to train them, to give them some basic skills, and the idea was that they could eventually go back into society.
It was about winning the heart and the mind.
Well, that was what it was supposed to do. It wasn't a prison. They were free to go. I mean, they could walk out any time. There was no fence on this place. It was defended because it was on the Amazon camp. It was part of the complex there, but it didn't feel like a prison. They were there because they were too scared to leave, and they knew what would happen to them if they went back and got identified as a Shabaab deserter. One of them had done that, I think. It was the week before, someone had, to hell with this, and got bored of it, gone back to Afgoye, I think, somewhere like that. And he was killed. He was identified and someone killed him. So the boys there were quite scared. And their complaint was that AMISOM, or rather the TFG, as it was then, were not doing enough to train them, there wasn't enough money going into the place. And I think they were right. It seemed to me they were missing a trick, AMISOM and the TFG. They should have been putting many more resources into that camp to make sure that they did learn something and a skill to give them the tools to go back into society, because without that they're going to, there was a risk that they were going to go back to Al-Shabaab. They weren't looking after them quite well enough, actually.
Well, I'll just put that quickly. Waxaan weydiiyey waxyaalihii uu ku arkay markii uu Soomaali tegay, gaar ahaan magaalada Muqdisho, inuu la kulmay madaxda Al-Shabaab si uu interview uga qaado oo uu weydiiyo ama ayaga laftigooda fursad uu siiyo oo waxa iyagu tabanayaan loo ogaado. Wuxuu yiri mar raba ima suurtagelin, mar walbana telefoonadooda waa la balbedelay, mar aysan lahayn telefoonno iyo email iyo waxyaalaha la midka laga xiriiro. laakiin waxaan la kulmay buu yiri askar u dagaalamaysay oo kaamka airportka agtiisa lagu soo qabtay, kuwaas oo ahaa kuwa ayagu dad aad u caqli badan ah, wax garanaya, aan ahayn dad al-qaacida iyo u dagaalamayay jihaad, balse u dagaalamayay waxa la yiraahdo maartay inay wax cunaan oo waxay cunaan ay helaan oo waxay cabaan ay helaan oo si ay noolaadaan oo kaliya calooshiisa u shaqeysto. Waxaan af Soomaaliga lagu yiraahdaa inkastoo asagoo saas u dhigay, laakiin macnuhu saan buu noqonayaa af Soomaalihan.
There's absolutely no evidence that they were mistreated. I want to make that point quite clear.
I'm just coming to that point.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Waxa uu strongly maaragtay James leeyahay kaamka markay ku jireen, waxaan weydiiyey dadkaas la soo qabtay Soomaalida, askarta madowga Afrika ay gacanta ku soo dhigeen oo dagaalamayay, mistreatment ma lagu sameeyay, sida in la jir dilo, la bahdilo, humiliation lagu sameeyo. Wuxuu yiri absolutely ma aanan arkinin. kaamkuna maba ahayn meel xiran ee albaabku u furan, anytime buu walk out sameyn karaa qofku. shabaabna waxaas maaragtay qofkuna uu tagi karay, balse week ka hor waxa dhacday mid kamid inuu baxay una tagay magaalada Afgooye oo maaragtay halka ku noqday, halkaas oo lagu dilay ay ciidamada ay Amazon ay sii daayeen. qofkii rabana uu baxay, dadka meesha lagu hayna waxa loo hayay waa soo hadalka u dhigay in dib loogu celiyo mujtamaca oo rehabilitation loo sameeyo, ma ahayn xabsi xiran. I did clarify that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Now, you talk about, you just mentioned the TFG, you talk about so-called corruptions, because we, Universal TV, cannot verify that. There was a corruptions within the TFG. I don't want to get into dirty politics here, but what was your findings in terms of so-called corruption?
Well, I mean, first of all, there is this thing called the Global Perceptions, the Corruption Perceptions Index, which ranks all of the countries in the world, and Somalia has been bottom of it, and bottom below even Afghanistan for the last 5 years, I think, year after year. Well, that's coming from somewhere, that kind of statistic. And you hear about it all the time. And I'm not a forensic investigator. I don't go into bank accounts and all the rest of it, so I can't, it's not what I'm about. It's not the, but it's clearly when you hear that many stories about corruption and the way it seems to work and the way that Parliament in particular was being co-opted by, if you like, clan interests or clan business interests, there was clearly something going wrong. And particularly, it's depressing at a time of, in 2011, there was a drought and a famine, and there's a big international effort to distribute food, and the food was still going missing. And the way that the food was being distributed in the camps was not, let's say, entirely in the public interest. And that's depressing to see.
waxaan weydiiyey buuggiisa meel uu kaga xusay musuqmaasuq lagu tuhmiyey dowladdii TFG-da aana u sheegay TV-ga Universal inuusan haba yaraatee wax cadayna ama daliil arrintaas inay dhacday aysan jirinin balse buuggiisa ay ku qoran tahay anaguna aanan mas'uul ka ahayn waxa buuggiisa ku qoran dabcan waad fahmaysaan waxaan weydiiyey arrintaas waxa ka jiray waxa uuna yiri arrintaas way jirtaa markii dunida la fiirshay buu yiri daraasad la sameeyay Soomaaliya waxay noqotay dunida meesha ugu hooseysa ama ugu daran dhinaca corruption-ka xataa Afghanistan inay ka liidatay ayuu sheegay wax lala yaabo laga xumaada abuu yiri baarlamaanku in maaragtay uu u qaybsanaa qabaa'ilo iyo dhibaatooyin malaayiin lacagna ay lumaysay markaas oo 2011kii dadweynaha Soomaaliyeed aad iyo aad u fara badan gaajo iyo silic iyo rafaad ay ku jireen wuxuu intaas raaciyay oo kale uu yiri waxa kale oo jirtay buu yiri oo muhiim ah in la ogaado cuntadii la qaybinayay oo dadku ay keeneen inaan loo qaybinin si equal ama cadaalad loo sameeynin dadkii Soomaalida ha baahna taasina waa wax laga xumaada ayuu yiri wahagaag intaas uu sheegayba anagu TV-ga Universal hadanahay ma cadayn karno wali waxa daawanaysan TV-ga Universal qaybtiisa arrimaha bulshada waxa caawa marti barnaamijkan waa James Ferguson oo qoraaga buugan James if we go to have you been to Hargeysa by the way
I have been to Hargeysa, yes.
Talk to me about Hargeysa.
Hargeysa is obviously something quite different compared to Somalia. It was the first time that I'd ever been to any Somali city where it was possible to walk around and not worry about your security. In a way, you could a bit in Garaway, to be fair, but you had to be a bit more careful. Hargeysa felt something like approaching normality, and that was something very refreshing. It's a remarkable place. The reconstruction that's gone on there since the Civil War is amazing. It tells you about the power of the diaspora, actually, because it's remittances from the diaspora that have financed that reconstruction. And so I completely understand when the Solano administration sees itself as maybe as a model for the rest of the country to follow. And it does explain why they... Clearly the suffering there during the Civil War was something special. And I completely understand why Somaliland would not want ever to be tainted by that disaster again. They're kind of very proud of the way that they developed. And it's a remarkably kind of outward-looking place. When you walk down Hargeisa High Street, every other shop seems to be Dahab Shield, or it's a phone shop, or clearly the place exists internationally, and it's a very remarkable kind of place. The mobile phone thing that goes on there is
Let me just put that in before I forget.
Sorry.
waxaan weydiiyey inuu dabcan buuggan ka akhriyay inuu Hargeysa tagay horan oga waxaan weydiiyey inuu Hargeysa tagay wuxuu yiri Hargeysa waa tagay Hargeysa wayna ka duwan tahay dalka Soomaaliya ama dhulka Soomaalidu ay ku nooshahay oo dhan way ka duwan tahay waa meesha kaliya oo markaad cagaha dhigtid buu yiri aad dareemaysid nabadgelyo dhulkana aad mari kartid si xornimo aad u maraysid waxa u soo dhow buu yiri garow laakiin garow xogaa yara inaad iska waardiyeysan u baahanto garbada fiirisid laakiin Hargeysa waa meel la yaabo buu yiri waxa aan fahmi karaa dawladda Silaanyo waxa aysan marnaba u doonaynin inay dib ugu noqoto Soomaali weyn inay dib ugu noqoto sababtuna waxa weeye waxa ay achieve gareeyeen ama ay qabsadeen oo nabadda iyo kala dambeynta iyo wanaaga Hargeysa High Street markaad tagtid buu yiri meesha aragtid telefoon iyo waxa ku yaala Dahab Shield ayaa ka socoto marka waxaan jeclahay inaan weydiiyo ma qaran ka jawaabi doono balse inaan weydiiyo sida uu arko daama Hargeysa ay nabad uu ku sheegay badankeenu dabcan hore u ogeyn arrintii dawladda Ingiriisku dhawaan ay soo saartay sida uu arko James, as you know, the Foreign Office released a statement not long ago saying if you hold British passport, Somaliland is absolutely a dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
You've been to Hargeysa. I've seen thousands of people who go to Hargeysa and come back every year and month and days. And one thing they all have in common is they want to go back. Hargeisa is beautiful. Hargeisa is peaceful, and on and on. That's what they say. And the British government to just go and destroy the reputation and the hard work that's been put into place for 22 years, not to mention 2 successful elections. You think the British government got it wrong?
I don't know why the British government did that. I mean, I would assume that they have their reasons, and I'd imagine that they are connected to security or intelligence, that they must know something that is not in the public realm. So I would imagine, and I would hope, that that's a temporary measure connected to something that is going on. I have no special insight into that, and I'm not part of the government. But I hope the damage is not permanent. I mean, this was only a travel advisory. It won't be permanent. It'll be lifted, I'd assume. I don't know how long it's going to go on for. So who knows? I mean, I don't think it's. I think that Hargeisa's reputation is probably tougher than that. I think it'll survive a British government advisory not to go there for a bit. I can't see why that would spoil everything. But I agree. I was rather mystified by it too. I don't know why they did that.
Okay. waxa uu yidhi sidaad og tahayba arrintaa dowladda ingiriisku ay ku dhawaaqday dhowaan waxa weeyaan waa arrin koley security-ga la xidhiidha buu yidhi anagu aanan ogeyn dadkuna aysan badankooda ogeyn laakiin xaqiiqadu waxay tahay buu yidhi sidaa idinkuba oola yaabteen baan oola yaabay shicibka Somalilandna shicibka Somalilandna dhaawac kuma soo gaaraya buu yidhi wayna ka awood badan yihiin wayna ka cizi badan yihiin inay waxaasoo kale ay dhaawac soo gaarsiiyaan Hargeysana maaragtay waxay ahayd waxa dowladdu ay dabcan ku talagelinaysay maxay raad dadka citizenkeeda balse ma ahan wax waligood noqon doona dadkuna waa dad maaragtay intaas ka cizi iyo sharaf badan ayuu yidhi. If we leave Hargeisa and go to Garowe, you talk about the resources, natural resources that country has, or that part of Somalia. Do you think if that was there on people to encourage private investment and stuff like that, we can get that oil out and probably the country can benefit from it as a whole?
If the oil is there, yes. I mean, the caveat to this is that people have been looking for oil in that part of the world for a very long time. In fact, when the British went there to bomb Tale in 1920, it was all done in secret. They went as geologists, pretending to be oil prospectors. Well, that was 100 years ago, and the oil hasn't come out of the ground yet. So, yes, it has the potential to bring an awful lot of money into a part of the world that could certainly benefit from it, providing it's spent wisely and without corruption, which is what people worry about. But I think there's quite a long way to go yet. And I know that there is a lot of interest now from foreign companies on both sides, in Somaliland and Puntland, and with this very difficult region in between, where there may be oil around Khartoum, that does make it more complicated. But I think we've got a long way to go yet before we see any benefit from that, I have to say.
waxaan weydiiyey tegitaankiisii Garowe iyo Puntland ana weydiiyey maaragtay maadaama la yiri dhulkaas waxa uu leeyahay saliid meelo badan oo Soomaaliya ka mid ah ay saliid leedahay ma laga yaabaa hadii saliidaas la soo saaro oo dadku ay maaragtay banaanka la keeno in la helo laga baxo gaajada silacay rafaadka wuxuu yiraahdaa laakiin 1920 markii Talax buu yiri ay dawladda Ingiriisku ay bamka la dhacday waxay wateen khubaro ayagu markaas saliid raadinaya waxayna soo ogaadeen Talax saliid ku jirta inaysan wali banaanka imaanin oo gudaha ay ku jirto سيرة أيان أسمينيين 1920 markay la dagaalamayeen daraawiishtii iyo macallinkii wanaag hogaaminayay Maxamed Cabdul Xasan laakiin waxa uu yiri Somaliland iyo Puntland ba meeshaas Khartoum state la yiraahdo ayay maaragtay labaduba isha ku hayaan ujeedaduna waxay tahay waxa ku jira macdan fara badan ama shidaal fara badan baa ku jira taasina waxay ka dhigi kartaa dhibaatooyin bay soo kordhin kartaa. On your book you talk about page 277 and 79 you talk about Universal TV.
Yeah. Well, I'm very pleased to be here. I think it's the whole television, the Somali television thing is rather extraordinary. I know that Jeffrey Gettleman, the famous New York Times journalist, yeah, he's good. I have a lot of time for his reporting. He's a good. He won a Pulitzer the other day, indeed, and he speaks very highly of UTV as being. He says, I think, if there is. If anything can draw together the Somali diaspora, it may well be UTV. It can be the gel that brings the community together. And it's a very 21st century thing, this, isn't it? I don't know how many TV channels there are. I think 6 is there now, all based out of London. I mean, this is very, using technology to communicate internationally, which It's the only way to do it because the Somali diaspora is so diverse. It's in Minneapolis, it's in Melbourne, it's all over the world. So TV does have the ability to create some kind of coherence in that very scattered community. And so Universal TV, I guess, has a very important role to play on that. That's got to be a good thing.
Thanks for saying that. We haven't paid you to say that. It's all, it's all in the book.
This is a free
it's all in the book. What is very important to us is that why would Jeffrey go his own way to say that? What makes him say that, do you think?
Well, I think it's because he would agree with me, and I would agree with him, that the diaspora is extremely important to Somalia's future. And I'm convinced that if there's going to be any real change in Somalia, and Somalia needs real change, the engine of that change is going to be the diaspora, and particularly the diaspora young. It's a funny thing that the experience of the diaspora has been, I think you would agree, mixed for Somalis. Some have not done well away from home, and we know all the problems, and your show has certainly discussed those before. But there are other Somalis, young Somalis, who have profited and benefited very much from the experience of being abroad through education, through work, through exposure to different ideas. And they are now impressively, and I think movingly, many of them determined to go back to Somalia and try and make the place better. And this is the upside of the diaspora experience. And so that can only happen if it's organized, and media and technology, I mean, not just UTV, but the internet and mobile telephones and the rest of it, all of that Somalis seem to know how to use extremely effectively. On Twitter, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, how I'm on Twitter and I get all these followers. It's all Somali. I mean, it's great. And
track you down.
Well, it's not hard. Yeah, they do seem to manage it.
I'll just put that to them. waxaa ku jira buuggan James Ferguson uu qoray qaybo badan oo kaga hadlaya TV-ga Universal iyo waxqabadkiisa. wuxuu marka hore miisaal u soo qaatay nin in badan Soomaaliya ka soo warramay oo New York Times u soo warramay Soomaaliya uga soo warramay. waxa uu yiri hadii uu jiro wax kaliya oo isku keeni kara waa soo hadalka u dhigay weeyaan page-ka 277 ayaad ka arki doontaan iyo 279 qofkii doonay inuu akhriyo buuggiisa. waxa uu yiri waxa kaliya isku keeni kara dadka Soomaaliyeed hadii ay jiraan wax isku keeni kara ama xabag ah ama glue ah hadalka soo dhigo isku keeni kara Soomaalida waa TV-ga Universal buu yiri oo asagoo dunida oo dhan broadcast u sameeyay meel kasta Soomaalidu ay joogto afkoodana ku hadla. waxaanu intaas kaga mahad celinaynaa ninka hadalka TV ka qoray waxaana naga go'an anoo magaca codka maamulka TV ku hadlaya barnaamijyo quality leh tayala iyo waliba warar sugan idin soo gudbino meel kasta oo dunida ka joogtaan xaq baan u leedahay wax fiican idin soo gudbino. waxa kale uu yiri maxaa ku kalifay baan ku yiri ninkaas inuu saas yiraahdo wuxuu yiri asagoo aniga ayuu igu waafaqi lahaa ana asaga ayaan ku waafaqayaa buu yiri inuu TV-ga Universal uu yahay TV-yada Soomaalida hawada ku jira TV kaliya oo buugga ku qoran tahay 2004 ilaa hadda socday Soomaalida dhan isu keeni kara. dhinaca kalena waxa uu yiri roolka uu ka ciyaaro ama qaybta uu ka qaato Soomaalida isu keenitaankooda iyo ka warqabitaankooda waa rool aan la inkiri karin indhahana laga laaban karin. halka waxay ku qoran tahay buuggiisa aad baan uga mahad celinaynaa. waxa uu kaloo sheegay dhalinyarada Soomaaliyeed ee diaspora ah baawarka ay leeyihiin meel kasta dunida ka joogaan qaarkood ay joogaan Minneapolis qaarkood ay joogaan Melbourne Australia qaarna ay meel kale joogaan inay wuxuu yiri ay yihiin dad ayagu maaragtay dadaal fara badan sameeyay in yar oo kamid ah ay nolosha ka dhacday balse badankooda ay yihiin dad dadaalay. James, we almost have 5 minutes or so. I want to talk about the stoning the man that's stoned to death. When you look at the book, it doesn't look nice at all. It really, really hits you.
Yep.
There's people who are doing that. I understand they are members of Al-Shabaab stoning him to death. Some people will say you're completely biased here because if you look at other religious books, stoning to death is there in the Old Testament if you read it. But you just use this as to in way of saying this is what Islam is all about. But we know Islam is not about that. What would you say to that?
Well, I know that I think you'll find if you look at the way I presented those photographs, I chose my words extremely carefully. It says this is how some extremist Muslims treat people. I mean, I think it wasn't actually Shabab. I believe it was Al Ittihad. I think it was something, but it's been on the internet for a long time now. It's been circulating for ages. You're right, it's not nice to look at. That's precisely why I put it in. My publishers didn't want to run it, actually. They thought it was too strong. And I insisted that it should go in because we need to know what kind of extremism, in some cases, takes place in Somalia. My view on this is that, I mean, you're right, it is risky because it could give some people the wrong idea. Indeed. And they might think that all Somali Muslims are interested in stoning to death. And of course that's not the case, and I would hope from the book that it's clear that that's not the case. On the contrary, I'm pretty convinced that Sharia and conservative Islam has a very important role to play in the reconstruction of Somalia. That is the way that the country is going, and I think that the constitution, when it comes, certainly does need to be based on Sharia. And furthermore, the West has got absolutely nothing to fear from that, because properly applied, Sharia is a good thing, and I'm absolutely clear about that. I always have been. It's just misunderstood in the West. So on the one hand, you're right, it's a bit risky because people might get the wrong idea about it, but this is not about Somalia. This is a sort of Wahhabi kind of imported thing from Arabia. And Somali Islam is a Sufi tradition. It's much more moderate, and that has nothing to do with this. It's kind of, and it's, I hope that's clear from the book. So if you only look at the photographs, there'll be a problem.
I hear you. I'll put that quickly. Waxaan tusay farta ugu fiiqay book nin dhalinyaro oo dhagax la dhacay ah oo yani sidii qofkii markuu zinaysto kale dhagax la dhacay waxa uu yiri dadka dhagaxa la dhacay al-shabaab ma ahayn buu yiri waxay ahayn itixaad bay ahaayeen soo asagoo hadalka u dhigay itixaad bay ahaayeen buu yiri islaamkuna ma aha buu yiri mana rumaysna islaamka iyo muslimiintu inay yihiin dad dhibaato wada reer galbeedkuna waxay ka baqaan ma aha diinta islaamkuna dhibaato dadka uma keento waxa kale oo inta raaciyay waxa uu yiri dadka wax dhagaxyeynaya oo maxaa uu ku tilmaamaya itixaad inay yihiin waxa uu yiri waa dad ayagu wahaabiyiin ah oo soo hadalka u dhigay isla mar ahaantaana dhulkaas Sacuudiga Carabta dhinaceeda ka noogaga yimid buu yiri soo hadalka u dhigay laakiin Soomaalida diinteedu waxa weeye Soomaalidu dadkii hore oo suufiyiinta ahaa dhaqankooda sidaas ayuu ahaa buu yiri si kala hadaan u dhigo waa soo asagoo hadalka u dhigay anagu Soomaalida dhaqankeeda ma doonayna kala saarna dana University TV laakiin that is exactly what James said. Sufism is the dhaqanka Soomaalida, Wahhabism iyo violence iyo dagaal ma ahan dhaqanka Soomaalida oo soo hadalka u dhigay. Finally, you talk about Farmaajo in the book, Mohamed Abdullahi Farmaajo, and the struggle that he faced.
Yes.
We'll end it with that. What was it all about?
Well, it was a sort of row with Sheikh Sharif, wasn't it? There was a power struggle going. This is 2011. There was clearly a power struggle. Farmaajo was seemed to me to be getting somewhere with his efforts to reform. He'd got a grip on the central bank and its lending, and he had quite an impressive collection of people around him. And I met several of them, not Farmaajo himself, but a lot of his ministers, like Mohamed Omar, and some good brains there, and they were good people. But there was this deadlock between the Speaker of Parliament, as you know, it just went on for months and months, the Speaker and the President kind of trying to get control of the thing, and it made Farmaajo's job almost impossible. But he went back to Buffalo, didn't he, I think? But I think he still has a role to play in Somalia's future. He's not disappeared, as I understand it, from the political scene. And I haven't met him, but from everything I've heard about him, he is an asset to Somalia and a good example of the kind of diaspora expertise that the country needs. And so I would hope that we'll see more of Farmaajo in the future. Excellent.
In 30 seconds, what is your message to the Somali community?
Well, the Somali community here is that your country needs you, and if Somalia is going to change, it is up to the next generation. The diaspora young are in a unique position to make a difference in Somalia. As I say, they are going back, many of them are, and others should follow. Get engaged with your country and go back and help, because the West, the international community, will not and actually cannot do it for you. It is Somalia and Somalis. It's a country for Somalis, and it's great to see that so many Somalis do want to go back and make a difference. So keep going, I suppose, would be my message.
Okay, and James Ferguson, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
To you.
No, it's been great.
Thanks very much, man. Well done. And okay, waxaan weydiiyey ugu dambeystii boog oo in badan uu ka xusay former Prime Minister Mr. Farmaajo iyo maxay tahay waxa uu boog ka qoray waxa uu sheegay in shaqadiisu ay dhibaato fara badan ay ku haysay xiriir ka dhaxeeyay oo soo hadalka u dhigay anagu maaragtay hadal anagu leenahay ma ahan labadii Sharif horey u tagay boos shaqadoodii inay dhibaato fara badan u keentay inuu shaqadiisa qabsan waayo laakiin uu haystay dad ministero ah ama MPyaal ah iyo wasiiro aad iyo aad u wanaagsanaa oo la shaqeynayay buu yiri oo uu ka mid yahay ninka uu magacaabay oo Maadi uu ka mid yahay waxa uu kaloo sheegay aan weydiiyey fariintaadu waa maxay dadka Soomaaliyeed aad u gudbinaysay waxa uu yiri Soomaali baa iskale dhalinyarada yaryar ee qurbaha joogta ee wax baratay ayaana dalka Soomaaliya wax ka bedeli kara United Nations ku idin ma sameyn kara meesha ka kaco dhulkiina lista barnaamijkan Cabdixakiin iyo waliba waxa farsamada iga caawinayay Cabdiqani Ba James Ferguson baa marti igu ahaa website-kan ayaa ka daawan doontaan intaanu kala dib ugu kulmi doono waxaan kaga tagay anigoo Cabdixafiin Maxamuud Jaamac taqwada Ilaahay midnimo. Assalaamu calaykum waraxmatullaah.